I hate the word suicide because it feels like we didn't reach out to them, we didn't help them. And that's the reason they've had to resort to what they've done. We got a cancer award within 5 years of doing our work, and it's an equivalent to an MBE. It became an addiction, first of all. The du'as became an addiction. The gratitude became an addiction. The helping people became an addiction.
What about the graveyard gave you that peace?
Replenishing their grave. Just because the families haven't been there doesn't mean that their grave should feel like no one loves them or no one misses them. I was to say no to anything when people reach out to me. To be honest, I'd be my own worst enemy. So many Muslim bodies at this present moment in the mortuaries, which is not renowned. And now they've started putting bodies on the floors because the fridges are full.
What kind of challenges have you faced running Supporting Humanity?
We need to at least explain to people mental health is an illness. After her burial, we found out that she was a straight A student. She got all A stars, but we feel like we let her down. We went there before she committed suicide, and I personally went to collect that body from the coroners.
Welcome to another episode of the Muslim Pound podcast. Today we have the CEO and founder of Supporting Humanity charity, Idris Patel. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum to all our viewers.
Walaikum salam. Idris, you do a lot of things. You got a full-time job. You are CEO of a charity, which feels like your full-time job. Tell us a bit about yourself.
For me, charity is something my mum instilled in me from a very young age. She always said to me, and I still remember, she said it to all 5 siblings. There's 4 other siblings that I sort of have. And she always said, it's not what the world can do for you, but it's what you can do for the world that's going to make me happy. So she said, make a difference for other people's lives. And inshallah, their du'as will come with you throughout your life, and inshallah that will be the blessings. And she always said that. And whenever we did something for other people, even if it be something like a simple act, like going to the shop for the neighbours or helping someone cross the road, she'd always be smiling. So from a very young age, that smile became a bit of an addiction for me. And making her smile, making her happy is something that I wanted to do. And then she reminded us, and also our religion, when it got instilled in me, and when I started reading and more practicing Islam, I realised that an important thing that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us was charity and also helping others. So yeah, charity to me is really, really important, and making a difference to other people's lives and hoping that they will also follow suit also becomes rewarding. So yeah, it's brilliant to try and do some charity work.
So what was your charity work like before Supporting Humanity?
So from a very young age, I was involved in sports and I was voluntarily coaching. So I was coaching cricket, football and refereeing as a volunteer and not charging money for it, to give something back to the community. The advantage of that was, whilst I was doing voluntary coaching, my cricket club would not charge me cricket subs. And I come from a family with a single parent, so my mum financially was struggling. So this helped me play sports and not have to burden my mother with the cost of me playing sports. So alhamdulillah, so I started volunteering as a in sports from a very young age. I qualified in 7 different sports, including hockey, basketball, volleyball, wheelchair basketball, cricket at senior level, football, refereeing, and various different sports. Anything that I think I could make a difference with. That's what I started doing. And because I was so involved in sports, I enjoyed doing that as well. And then the graveyard came into my life. Funny as it sounds, when I was going to a graveyard, I enjoyed spending time there, whether it be just sitting there watching the graves, working on basic graves that I didn't even know of because I had no family that were buried in the graveyard. But just going to funerals, and when I went to funerals, helping dig a grave or replenish a grave, it started giving me loads of inner satisfaction and peace. So I got involved with the graveyard, local graveyard, from a very young age, from about 16 years old. Initially, it was just helping dig graves or replenishing the graveyard, meaning doing cleanup days, tidying up, and various different things.
What about the graveyard gave you that peace? Because it's very abnormal for a 16-year-old to be in the graveyard.
It's funny because, like I said, I had no one buried at the graveyard, but I've always wanted to attend a burial, because every time I went to any burials, the one thing it reminded me was the one thing guaranteed in life, which is death. And also it kept me grounded. So I don't know what it was about the graveyard. And even today, every time I do go into a graveyard, I still get that sense of satisfaction when I've done something. It's as if like I'm doing something for my afterlife and hoping that what I'm doing, people will continue to do. Again, which is just the simple things of people that you don't know, replenishing their grave, just because the families haven't been there doesn't mean that their grave should feel like no one loves them or no one misses them. Just tidying up that grave and making it look fresh, making it look like family's been there, or just a simple prayer at that grave and hoping that prayer will make a difference. These sort of things make an immense difference to me. But like I said, more than the other people, it's also helping my mental health and well-being, so which is the satisfaction that I find from this work.
Supporting humanity started in COVID. What kind of inspired you to start it?
Supporting humanity was a really interesting find because I was involved with charity work and I got approached by two different people. One was Sheikh Yunus Dudwala for burials because there was immense number of bodies waiting in mortuaries for the Barts Trust, which was Royal London, Whipps Cross, Newham, King George's, Queen's, Homerton, St. Bart's and St. Thomas, and their mortuaries were overloaded. So he rang me up and had an emergency call with me and he said, Idris, there's bodies, and more worrying is there's so many Muslim bodies at this present moment in the mortuaries, which is not renowned. And now they've started putting bodies on the floors because the fridges are full, the stretchers are full. So we need to do something. So have you got any storage space? So initially he rang me up for storage space and we started talking about storage space. And then he said, Idris, let's go one better. The masjids are closed. The mortuaries are closed because the masjids are closed. We need to do something and wash these bodies and start burying them. What can we do? So we reached out to Gardens of Peace. Gardens of Peace said they've got a container. Initially, they offered me 30 spaces of bodies storage on the basis that we will bury them within 48 hours, meaning get them washed, shrouded and buried. So on the first night, I still remember we had no ambulances. So we reached out to a few people and someone lent us 2 ambulances. And we're literally doing trips backward and forward from the hospitals to collect bodies and store them at Gardens of Peace. And that's how it all started. And at the same time, Barts Trust, when I went there, had a meeting with me and called me in and they said, we've got a major problem. And I went, yeah, we know we've come to collect the body. And they went, no, we've got another problem. All these doctors that you're seeing here, when they go out, the shops are closed, the cafes are closed. So they've got no hot food. We've got loads of sandwiches and everything, but these people are doing 14, 16-hour shifts and they've got no hot food. Can you help us in any way whatsoever? The second problem we have is we have no money to pay for these people's food because they pay for their own lunches. Now, how can we ask them for money up front? So what can you do? So then I took a second project on of trying to find and source hot food free of charge for those people in the hospital who are working for 12 hours or more in a shift. So we took 2 projects on overnight and within 48 hours we started rolling out with both projects.
How are you delivering the food to the hospitals? Because you also delivered about 30,000 meals during COVID to everyone else.
In total, we've done 92,000 free hot meals over 40 days. And initially, the first time I went to the hospital asked me for 300 meals in total. That's all they wanted, 300 meals. But by the time we started, 24 hours later, we'd ended up doing 1,300 meals on day one. And honestly, I put a message out on my WhatsApp status. And that message literally spiraled. And I don't know how. I think within an hour or two, I'd had about 100 people contact me to say they wanted to volunteer to help deliver food. I also reached out to local businesses regarding donations of various different things, whether it be meat and chicken, whether it be rice, oil, anything and everything. And then I also reached out to a local business who's a very famous restaurateur, Saffron Kitchen, who I know them quite well. And I asked them if they could bring the cost down of cooking these meals and we would try and provide the ingredients. So after everything and the kind gestures of also Gafur Poultry, who offered to give us all the meat for a charge, we brought the meals down to the cost of providing the meals packed and ready with Saffron Kitchen's help to £1 per meal. Obviously, everyone was subsidising it, including Saffron Kitchen. And then we also had the help of all the volunteers. When we counted the volunteers, approximately we had 350 volunteers delivering or helping with packing the food. And the volunteers that were coming on the day were bringing their own vehicles, using their own cost and expenses to deliver these meals as well. So they were going out in their cars or their vans or whatever vehicles they had. and we were providing them the hot boxes and various different things to make sure that the temperature of the food was kept at the right temperature and being stored at the right temperature, just in case of safety as well.
What prompted you to give out meals to the older people as well? Because I remember when we were doing it, there were times we were going into places where there was just one 85-year-old man living there, and it's like, how do they even survive on a day to day?
So the idea actually came from my grandma, who's passed away. So during COVID, I was sitting at home and I sort of went to her for her blessings. And I always go to my mum and my grandma because I used to look up to them. And my grandma used to look up to all the time, and she used to look up to me. And silly enough as it sounds, she passed away at the age of 98. But no matter what she wanted to do, even though if she wanted anything, she'd always ring me up for advice, and she made me feel special. So when I was going to start this thing, I went up to her and I said, Nani, I need your du'as and I need your blessings. I'm going to do this. And so I told her I'm going to do it with the hospital, and she said, Inshallah, Allah, give you success, and Allah, whatever's good for you, Inshallah, He bring in your life. And then she said to me, oh, Idris, can I ask you a question? You're doing all of this for people in the hospital, but what about people like your Masi? And she mentioned my mum's sister, and she said she's been living alone. She's not coming out of the house. I rang her today, and she basically had no food and she was eating fruit and stuff. So why don't you think about vulnerable people? So she's the one who came up with that idea, and I said, oh. And coincidentally, then we put an advert out on a poster to say, any vulnerable people out there who may be living alone, contact us. Or if any children who know of their parents who are living alone, contact us, and we may be delivering hot food to them. And that's where the idea came from. So we ended up giving 900 vulnerable people, delivering food for 40 days to 900 vulnerable people every day, free hot food again. So including the hospitals. So in the end, we were doing, on a maximum, we've done 2,700 meals per day. And like I said, over 40 days, we've done 92,000 free hot meals.
So what kind of help did you get from, obviously you got help from local businesses and just local people, but what kind of help did you get from like local councils?
We didn't reach out to local councils because what we didn't want people to think, or we didn't want people to think that we were doing this for money. So the last thing we did was reach out to local councils or anyone in those sort of aspects. Yes, we rang up the local councils regarding our volunteers to make sure that everyone was listed, because at that time there was numerous fines that was going around for people who were at the house not when they didn't need to be. So we got permission from the local councils and also made sure that all our governance was done on the basis of giving them names of all our volunteers, the ages, etc. But we didn't ask for any funding from local authorities or councils or anyone. We actually reached out to a local community. And when we started doing our work, honestly, I can tell you that the amount of people that came forward and offered us money to help towards the project was unbelievable. Like I said, initially when we first started the food project, I was expecting to do maybe 5,000 meals over 40 days. We ended up doing 92,000 meals at £1 a tub. But you can imagine the amount of money we had to raise. And honestly, I can say, other than the first 2 days where I sort of had to take money out of my pocket, after that, we didn't look back. We never once had to seek money. Alhamdulillah, people came forward and they were so generous because they could see the work we're doing and they could see the honesty, the sincerity, and how even their own family members were getting involved. We had mothers ringing us up and saying, oh, my son's never done any work like this, and he comes home now and he even helps clean up the house and everything. Whatever you're doing, continue. Honestly, and that mum would then end up donating to us. So like I said, this has got nothing to do with us. It was a blessing from Allah and obviously someone's du'as that helped us do this work and succeed in everything we did.
I want to move on to the burial aspect during COVID. What was the actual situation on the ground?
It's one of the scariest things I saw. The first day when I walked into Royal London Hospital mortuary, and I walked in with Sheikh Yunus, the NHS chaplain, and now he's area manager as well for the NHS chaplaincy. When we walked into the mortuary, I've never seen anything like that before. I'd walked into mortuaries on numerous occasions to collect bodies. I walked into that mortuary and honestly, it's as if like you had no space to walk because there was bodies everywhere. It was like a scary film. Not because they had no care or respect for the bodies, but people were passing away literally every 2 or 3 minutes in the wards. They needed beds for the wards because they had people waiting in A&E and there was people waiting in ambulances. So they had to bring the bodies to the mortuary, but the fridges were full in the mortuary. The mosques were closed. most English funeral directors were not doing any burials. The Muslim people were not sure how to bury and where to do the ghusls. So on the first day, I still remember Maulana Yunus said to me, we may end up doing burials without doing ghusls and shrouding people. So we need to do something before we do that. And he said, I can bring someone to you, Idris, from the health authority in the NHS to advise us on how we can do ghusls and how we can do shrouding in a safe environment. You will need to get the PPE equipment. We'll need to get everything. But we need to try and do justice to all these people who have passed away. We need to try and wash these bodies. But more importantly, we need to move these bodies, get them washed, shrouded, and as per one of the instructions of our Prophet, bury them as soon as possible. And right now, all of these bodies are being delayed for no reason whatsoever. And the one thing he stipulated to me, and he had this paper in front of him, and he took it out and he said, here's something I've written down from a call this afternoon. And he read it and I read it as well at the same time. It said the deceased person is of less risk to spread COVID than the person who's standing next to you. So what Sheikh Yunus said to me is, Idris, the person lying on the floor actually, he's no longer a danger of spreading COVID to anyone. He's passed away from COVID, but he can't spread it. If anything, you're the danger, Idris. And that's why COVID is saying stay away from everyone. So what we're saying is, why are these people then who have passed away suffering? Let's give them burials. And like I said, it was a really, really scary state of times because all those bodies, and literally on the first day, we started doing like a train service where we were picking up bodies from the hospital, taking them for storage and coming straight back to collect more bodies. And whilst the bodies were being collected, there was ghusls going on. And I joked about it the other day with my mum to say, Mum, honestly, it was like a Tesco queue because one ghusl would finish, they'd have to clean up the room, and we had a special cleaning team. They were taking half an hour with special liquids and everything to clean up the room. And then the second ghusl would start. So literally had a line of bodies, one behind the other in coffins or stretchers, waiting for ghusls to be done. And then the following day, we'd go to Gardens of Peace. And I think on the first day, we did between 12 or 15 burials, and all of them for supporting humanity. We'd done 15 burials in one day at Gardens of Peace, and no family members were there. The only people there were from people, either volunteers from Supporting Humanity or the staff of Gardens of Peace. And honestly, I can say anyone that was involved in these things at the time, they were chosen from Allah for this work, and only Allah will reward them for what they did.
What kind of support did you give to the families at that time? Because obviously there's a lot of people passing away even quite suddenly and they were quite young and they were suffering with grief. So what kind of support did you give?
We done a lot of video calls. So we again stole an idea from the NHS, which was doing video calls. So after ghusls, we were doing face viewings on video calls. During burials, we were very, very careful on how much of a video call we could do because there's certain element of a burial that you can't really video call. But we were giving them video calls so that they could feel like they were at a burial. And then we were doing aftercare calls as well. However, after a little while, the family started ringing us up and thanking us. They made us feel like we were more family for them than anyone else was. Honestly, the amount of people that said to me, or have said to someone in the charity, that you're the child that I never had before, or you're the son, you're the daughter, or you're the brother or sister I never had before. The tears, the emotions, the empathy, I can't really comment or relate or explain in words of the empathy and the emotions that people were going through and how we helped them and how they sort of praised us and gave us du'as. I've always craved for those things, and I've always said to people that there's something that you can't buy with money. And that is when a person is actually in need, and when they really give you those du'as from their heart, it's at that time when they really need it. And honestly, at that time, I can say the gratitude and the du'as they gave, I was craving the du'as more than the gratitude or the thank you. And the du'as that they were giving, I can't even really relate to or can't even respond or remind people of what they said, because sometimes when I sit there and remember what they were saying, it's du'as that you probably wish all your life that people would give you and they were giving at that time.
Why did you then continue with the burial service? Because now it's a fully fledged service. You do workshops across the country. What made you want to continue?
It became an addiction, first of all. The du'as became an addiction. The gratitude became an addiction. The helping people became an addiction. But then more importantly, the volunteers, they've never let me look back. they've always wanted to continue. They came up with new ideas. They wanted to continue growing. And we wanted to continue making the difference we're making. The one thing we learned during COVID was the Muslims were being criticized for the way we were doing certain things because we're very unprofessional. We like to do things, but we do it unprofessionally. So when we went to hospitals, the respect was not there for the Muslim funeral directors, not because they didn't want to respect us, but because we were not following the processes. So that's one thing that Supporting Humanity have changed. We've changed the way we do things when it comes to a funeral director. We're doing everything that they've asked for and above and beyond. The equipment that you take, the way we reach out to them, the way we speak to them, the way we follow processes, the paperwork side, and more importantly, the storage of the bodies, how we collect bodies. And also now we're using our youth. So Supporting Humanity, one of the things we try to do is encourage the younger generation to take over what our parents, our grandparents did, which is washing of the body and shrouding the body. So majority of the people that are now washing and shrouding our bodies are of a certain element of age, which is of the younger generation. And being able to get people involved and people enjoying it and people feel responsible for what we're doing is why we're continuing. And yes, we're expanding in the work we're doing. So we do ghusl workshops. We also do funeral service, free of charge funeral service. The ghusl workshops, the reason we expanded in them and the reason we do that is, first of all, to educate people on how to do ghusls and also get people involved with ghusls. And secondly, there's so many community things that we've been doing, which is not exactly the right or Islamic way of doing it. So where we'd sort of learn how to do a ghusl from our uncle or auntie or granddad or just someone from the local mosque, there were so many things that were being done incorrectly. And we wanted to get these things corrected so that we were doing everything in the right way. And that's what we're trying to do, to educate people in the right way. And inshallah, hope that everything we do is the correct way and everyone's going to be rewarded, because if we pass on this knowledge, inshallah, and as long as this knowledge continues and as long as the work continues, everyone involved with this work will be rewarded.
My mum actually lives for this work. And I think since COVID, when she started washing the bodies, I think she's found like a new lease of life in terms of this is her now and this is what she wants to do. And obviously now she does a chaplain, which she loves as well. I think, how does the volunteers wanting to do the work impact your workload?
Your mum is a perfect example of volunteers. We put a message out, so we've got volunteer groups and then we've got lead groups. So your mum's a lead in the volunteer female team. Whenever I put a message to say female ghusl, your mum's probably one of the first people to respond to say I'm available, and all the leads will become available.
And that's why
But
she's
not-
always on her phone.
Yeah, but not just that. Honestly, every time I see her come to a ghusl, she comes smiling. She comes as if she knows that she's doing something good and she enjoys doing something good. And then the way she shows empathy to the family, the understanding with the family. If you hear the feedback from families, because we've got a feedback form as well, the praise they give these ladies that do the ghusls or even the men's team, not because they say it's their job, but it's the way they've got the family involved, the way they've explained things. And it's as if the person that's passed away was more family to them than they are to the family who's lost someone. So your mum probably washes her body feeling like it's her own mum or own sister or her own grandmother that she's washing, and she shows all that love and empathy. These volunteers are complete angels. That's all I can say, honestly. They're angels in this world and they've been chosen for the work. They're the ones who drive Supporting Humanity. They're the ones who come up with fresh ideas. Whenever I come up with an idea and I'm trying to implement it, they're the ones who will support it. They're the ones who are giving me the backing. And with Supporting Humanity, those that will probably know Supporting Humanity, other than the funeral logistics side, every other part of Supporting Humanity has a woman who's a lead in that role. There's a reason why I'm getting them to lead. It's because we're trying to empower the women within our community. There's been far too long where the women were the ideas, the women were the brains. And unfortunately, us men, we were really selfish and we were taking the glory and we thought women have to be hidden behind the doors. These women are the ones who educated us. My mum gave birth to me. She educated me. My dad used to be out of the house. My mum's the one who taught me how to ride, probably even how to ride a bike. My mum taught me how to walk, how to go to mosque, even picking up from mosque. Everything my mum taught me. But yes, because my dad earned the money, we probably were giving the glory to my dad. But now we're trying to change that to say, why shouldn't we empower the women? Why are our women who used to sew at home and create all these dresses and beautiful clothes, why are they not getting the reward for all the great work they're doing? And that's what we're trying to do in supporting humanity. We're saying to the women, don't just come and volunteer, also become a lead, and don't feel embarrassed when we say you are the brains behind this, you are our future, and you're the reason why this charity is driving and achieving great successes. So we try and empower the women, educate them, and also learn from their learnings.
How do they like galvanize themselves to do charity work? Because it's not easy. There's a lot of other things now you do. You do the over 60s, you do bereavement circles. There's a lot of other things that you do. So how do they continue doing it?
So you're correct. We've got numerous different workshops. We've got numerous other things. So the trips and various different things. So like I said, what we've now got is various leads for all different parts of work. And the beauty of the women right now is all their lives, they've learned how to balance time. Unlike us men who want to watch Match of the Day for 3 hours and various different things. I'm not saying the sisters don't do this, but the sisters know how to get barakah of time. Honestly, they find time, they make time. And the one thing about the sisters, I have to say, whenever they've got something that they want to do and achieve, they will make sure they go out and make that time and make it happen. They literally believe whatever they've put their name forward for is their next path. It's like they've given birth to a new child and they want that child to nurture and become the next generation. And that's what they do with any new work they give them. They make it like their own child. They empower it. They bring it into their own lives and they make it feel like they want to succeed. Every woman in supporting humanity is a success. The reason if without them, supporting humanity would be nothing. And I can honestly say, people like Salma and Humaira's and the Sophia's and Sumaya's and every other woman I know in that charity, genuinely, I don't know how they get the time, I don't know how they get the energy, but they always come smiling, they're always energetic, and they always want to make a difference.
What kind of challenges have you faced running Supporting Humanity? Because like a few weeks ago, we were meant to record the podcast and then you said, look, there's 5 people in ICU. And the next day you said, okay, there's 3 burials, you can't do it. Even when my grandfather passed away, you were on the phone to me trying to sort out our burial, but you're also trying to sort out 2-3 other burials. And then you had numerous people in ICU. Then you get phone calls saying, can you get us a side room in the hospital? And then you sort that out. You speak with the chaplains. What kind of challenges and how do you navigate it?
So the funeral side of things, because of my relationship with the NHS, I also had a role with the NHS as a consultant in various different fields. So I've had some really good experiences, made some really good contacts, relationships with chief execs, site managers, consultants. My relationship with the hospitals has been really, really good. So some of the things that we try and help families with is going above and beyond, especially during their time of need, which is palliative care and end of life. So we try and get them important aspects of like the singular rooms so that families can come and spend their time there. The Asian families are a lot bigger compared to other communities. So when it comes to saying their last goodbyes, a lot of family members will come. And so rather than disturbing the whole hospital, it's one of the things I've spoken to the hospital about, to say we also understand the constraints the staff have and also the patients have at the hospital. So to try and help that, if I can work with the hospital and try and see when we know about bigger families, about getting individual rooms. Also, we've recently been doing a new thing, which is end-of-life care and visits to hospitals and homes. So balancing all of these things has been really, really hard because we're expanding. And you're right, there's permanently different things happening. The funeral side is one of our bigger sides, really busy, and we're permanently helping with burials, helping with end-of-life patients, dealing with doctors, hospitals, care homes, and different things. Balancing act, the way I always look at things is Allah gives barakah in everything. And honestly, whenever you make a good intention, Allah will make that time for you and Allah helps whatever happens. So anything that happens, it's not because Idris has done it. It's because Allah wanted you to do it. He's just made me a form of a person to try and get a reward to make it happen. Had it not been Idris, it would have been Abdul or Ali or Hashim or Zohra or someone or another, but Allah is giving me the opportunity of getting that reward. So there's no way I can say no. It's like saying if someone puts a gold bar in front of me and says it's yours, and I walk away walk away from it and say, no, I don't want it. Allah's giving me that chance to say, here's your gold in this world and that will benefit you in the hereafter. So if I was to say no to anything when people reach out to me, to be honest, I'd be my own worst enemy.
Are you fed up with bad tenants? Are you struggling to sell or buy a property? At High Castle Estates, we know property isn't always easy, but that's why we're here. We help landlords secure reliable tenants fast. We help sellers sell with confidence and achieve the best price. We help buyers find the right home without the hassle. Property is stressful, but with the right team, it doesn't have to be. So, if you're looking to sell, rent, or buy a home, get in touch today at High Castle Estates in East London. You can find the details in the description below. Do you not feel burnt out anytime, or because sometimes your phone's just constantly going off?
There is many times when I feel burnt out, and there's many times when my wife will probably say, "When you're going to give us time?" Or, there's loads of different things. Like my wife, for example, may want to go shopping and something, and all of a sudden phone rings and some emergency comes up, and I say, "You carry on." These things do happen. So I'm quite lucky that, alhamdulillah, my wife and the children and everyone's really understanding and supportive of what we do. Burnout side, honestly, I can say no, because I've always said to my wife, my children, and everyone, my rest period will be when I get in the grave. This is really a test. So the more good deeds I do right now, the better rest I'll get in bed in the grave. So whenever I feel burnt out, most probably I'll grab some junk food, especially chocolate, because I'm a chocoholic, and then you carry on.
You do quite a lot of work for the older people. Does that stem from your mum as well?
Yeah, the older generation, for some reason, I don't know why, I've really, really been close to. Ever since I was young, because of my personality, I always like to make people laugh and smile and everything. So when I used to go to weddings or various things with my mum, all her friends would call me over and say, "Oh, make us laugh," or make me crack some jokes, and I'd always make them laugh and smile. And watching them smile and laugh, honestly, sometimes I used to just sit from afar and see a woman that was really miserable in the corner or really sad in the corner, all of a sudden start smiling and laughing, and then she'd just sort of start getting involved with the crowd, and she was sitting there individually. And you think, wow, I've made that woman smile. Look, she looks so angry. She looks so sad. And it became a bit of a passion to make people laugh and smile. So sometimes you'd make an idiot of yourself to make that person laugh or joke and smile. And yeah, and that's from that age, I realized that working with everyone, in particularly the elderly, makes me happy, especially the elderly, because in our community, the elderly have worked. And even all their friends, when they came over to this country, they lost track of because they were so worried about making money. They lost friendships. And they never built no community centers because we were more worried about building a house in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or wherever else we came from. We didn't build no community centers in this country. We didn't do nothing for our youth. We didn't do nothing for our elderly because what we call a third world country, they're more ahead than us. Because if you go to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh right now, the elderly there have things to do after a certain age of retirement. We here, we don't, because we didn't build nothing. So now, working with the elderly and trying to give them something back for all the investments that they made, either within my father or my mother, or me and my siblings, or whoever they did it for, it's time to give something back to them, and then making them smile in their last stages. And I know it could be a last stage for anyone. It could be you, me, or anyone. But realistically, as we look at statistics, it looks by age, the elderly are probably more likely to die than a person who's a little bit younger. So trying to make them smile and make them happy in their old age is an addiction for me. And knowing that if you're there for them, especially at a time when their own siblings or their own children and everyone is not being there for them, if you're at least there for them, they'll feel and know there's people out there that love them and that do care about them.
What about the mental health phone calls that you do? Because that's obviously a very important aspect and it's kind of different from everything else that you do.
So mental health in the Muslim community, specifically South Asian community, is a stigma. And up until the last 10 years, whenever someone spoke about mental health, they said it was black magic. And we'd ring up India, we'd get some Maulana on the phone call and he'd say, yep, cut 20 black sheep and that will be rectified and send me 10,000 rupees and I'll also get, do this and do that. And so many people got impacted. We probably lost a generation of people through mental health, meaning people who we could have helped, who could have had a better life, who we could have helped and recognize the illness of mental health. So supporting humanity, especially during COVID and after COVID started, realizing that if we did not reach out and if we didn't help people, that we're going to be our own worst enemies in our future generations, because these people will move away, not just from our community, but probably even from the religion, because we're not getting help. If they are going to get help from other communities, that's who they're going to relate to. So we set up a telephone line. We trained people up in well-being, mental health and well-being. We also got some clinical psychologists on board as well, who are also volunteers. And now what we do is we get people to ring us and speak to us about their mental health and well-being. One of the failures of supporting humanity, and I always say this every time I get a phone call to hear that someone has committed suicide, they've died from suicide, and we're dealing with a case. Genuinely, that's the one time everyone from supporting humanity will stay away from me. And if you ask anyone, they'll tell you it's like I beat myself up because I know that I'm failing in what we're trying to do. I hate the word suicide because it feels like we didn't reach out to them, we didn't help them. And that's the reason they've had to resort to what they've done. So we're really actively also working with schools to try and now educate children from a very young age to recognize mental health, and also to reach out, the signposting of mental health, and also see the signs of mental health about what they can do, who they can reach out to. And it's not just about themselves, it's about their friends, their family, and also seeing signs of what mental health is and what they can do.
What kind of people reach out to you on your mental health line? Because obviously it's not easy for the volunteers as well. But how do the volunteers cope? And what kind of people also reach out?
So because we've got a funeral service as well, a lot of people that reach out to us are due to bereavement counselling because they're struggling with the loss of their loved one. So sometimes you could have anyone from the age of 16 all the way to about 70, 80 years old. So other than bereavement counselling, we also have a lot of people from, due to the school visits we do, we have a lot of children that's ringing us up. One of the things we've found when we speak to school children is they don't want to pick up the phone anymore. And we keep getting asked if we can create an e-chat so that they can speak to us virtually rather than picking up the phone. And then we've got the older generation. The older generation, especially the ones that feel let down, they feel like they've been left alone. We get a lot of them reaching out to us because they feel they've got no one else to talk to. Sometimes people reach out to us just because they need someone to talk to and not because they're thinking of committing suicide. They genuinely just want to talk about their problems, about being alone, feeling unloved, feeling neglected. And then there's the people who are going through addictions. There's the alcohol addiction, the drug addiction, the gambling addiction, and even porn addiction, which a lot of us Muslims don't want to talk about. The truth of it is, porn addiction actually in Muslims, along with alcohol and drugs, is on a really high, real high. The only problem is we always believe in closing our curtains and pretending it's not happening. So we have a lot of these people also reach out to us who obviously want to stay anonymous. And that's the whole beauty of our charity. Because we're anonymous, people trust us.
In terms of community, you've mentioned obviously the mental health stigma, which even to this day is still there, but it's not as bad as 10 years ago. What do you need from our community to help you level up?
So we've been recently working with the masjids, the mosque, and we've also been now where the mosque are creating community centres. So we've been asking them, rather than trying to create a new will, which is something that you're not an expertise in, which is mental health, why don't you partner up with Supporting Humanity and work with us so that we can come into the mosque, we can put posters in the mosque. Now that we've got TVs in the mosque, we can probably put an advert on there of Supporting Humanity, mental health, how we can help, etc., our telephone line number. The community actually, I know we say we do recognize it, but the community actually still need to believe and recognize mental health as an illness, especially within our community, as in South Asian community. Because I still think there's about only 60% that recognize it as a mental health, as an illness, and there's a 40% who still think it's all a game and it's something that's created in the head whereby someone just doesn't want to do something, so they say, I've got mental health issues, and we don't believe that this could be an illness.
In terms of collaboration between Supporting Humanity and masjids, is there still a lot more that can be done?
We've probably not even gone into second gear with the masjids. The masjids will probably, when we approach them, every time we approach them, they'll say, yes, send us a poster. They'll probably talk about it for about half an hour, and then walk away. The mental health posters, realistically, we need in our masjids, like we do with the timetables, they should be coming up once a day, every day, 365 days a year. And we should be talking about this at least once a month in our masjids. Every masjid, I reckon, in the last year has had one person either attempt suicide or who has actually committed suicide. So what we need to realize as masjids and local community is that we're all responsible. It's not supporting humanity are responsible for this person, because if you knew this person and they committed suicide and you didn't help them, you're equally responsible. Masjids are responsible. The community centers are responsible. The community as a whole is responsible, because we knew this person was struggling. What did we do? We were too busy going to our weddings, too busy maybe even coming to a mosque and praying on namaz, rather than walking past this person who was sitting there lonely and alone, depressed, trying to knock on his door. If on the day of judgment we get questioned on this, I can honestly say the person who's committed suicide, he's going to blame all of us, and we're all going to have to answer to Allah, because it's also equally our responsibility to help someone who's unwell. And this is a person who's unwell.
So just say someone's unwell and they know they're unwell, they're thinking of suicide. What do they do? Do they reach out to supporting humanity?
Yeah, so initially, when people reach out to supporting humanity, we're well-being line. That's how we signpost our posters, as a well-being line, because we want people to ring us up and talk to us first. Because if we say you're a mental health telephone line, people get scared because they think we're automatically going to assume they've got mental health issues. The other problem with the South Asian community is they think mental health issue means that you're going to be screaming, shouting, and doing absurd things, which not everyone understands what mental health is. So we're a well-being line, and we hope that when people ring us up, they'll talk to us about stress, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. It could be anything. Now, it doesn't have to be suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts may be the last thing that they're going to talk about. Initially, it could be stress and anxiety about not wanting to face people, not wanting to see people. So when they reach us up, we try and get them to talk about what they want to talk about, try and get them to reach out to us, try and see what the issues are. And if they'll open up, and opening them up and talking about their issues and becoming their friend, their mentor is really, really important. Then if we think that they are a danger to life, meaning if they're going to commit suicide or threatening they're going to kill other people, that's when we start taking other stages. So initially, if it's just a case of signposting them for other additional help for mental health, then we will probably signpost them to our clinical psychologist or to other charities that we work with. We've got psychologists on board. However, if they're a threat to life, then we always say this to all our well-being people. 999 is our first point of contact. The way to save a person's life is not by ringing up a psychologist and then getting back to them 5 hours later, because that may be too late. If a person threatens about suicide, we have to ring 999 up. And supporting humanity are a perfect example, because we saved a life nearly 2 years ago. Someone was at Tower Bridge. They rang us up. They were ready to commit suicide. Everything was done. The only reason they'd rang us up was to let us know that the world had let them down. And, they didn't blame supporting humanity. They just saw our number on a board, and that's the last number they saw. That's why they're ringing us up, to let them know that we're going. And when they go, their body's going to be here. So they just wanted to let us know where they're jumping. The person that answered the phone, they carried on talking to him. They spoke to him. While speaking to him, we seek permission for them to come and see him. And we said, look, if we're going to come and see you, we'll have to ring up the police. The police will need to come with us. But the person had built a rapport by this time. And there was a three-way call conversation going with myself, our agent, the person who'd rung up the phone, and another person. So then we went out to Tower Bridge, and this person was ready to commit suicide. They'd left their letters at home. Even when you went to their house, their bags and everything had been packed. This person, actually, we talked them down from suicide. Alhamdulillah, the police had closed down Tower Bridge from both ends. The person didn't commit suicide, came down off the bridge. They were sectioned initially. There was people recording thinking, oh, terrorism case, various different things. Actually, this person was struggling with mental health. When we talked them down, the good thing was they were sectioned, and alhamdulillah, they went through all the works. And now they work with the NHS, and an ambassador about suicide. They go around various different places, including schools and other places, to talk about suicide and how they were going through suicide. They nearly committed suicide, and how they've talked themselves around and actively working.
How does it actually make you feel that you've saved, or your charity has saved one person's life?
when we started the mental health telephone line, if you go and ask anyone, I said to them, "Oh, my target is just to save one life. Once we've saved one life, I'll be happy. We can close the telephone line down. Since we've saved that one life, and when I say we did, the charity or the person themselves did because they helped themselves as well. We've now become addicted. And like I said, every time we get suicide cases, so this year we've dealt with nearly 8 Muslim suicide cases. One of them was a 16-year-old Muslim girl, really sad story. A-grade student at school, 16-year-old, done her exams. She didn't know her exam results. And actually, after her burial, we found out that she was a straight A student. She got all A stars. But we feel like that. We feel like we let her down because we went there before she committed suicide. And all the other people that committed suicide, one who jumped in front of a train. And I personally went to collect that body from the coroners. I cannot tell you how bad I felt when I know the sisters had to give that young lady the ghusl. She was in 3 pieces. And I had to warn the sisters beforehand about the body. But more than anything else, the nur that was on that sister's face, I can't explain it really. Honestly, I know she committed suicide and we talk about people's faith being lost when they commit suicide. But the people that should have been ashamed, the people whose faces shouldn't have had nur was our faces because we left this person, we let them down. When I found out the true story behind everything, this person for about a year had been telling their family and their friends about all the problems they were going through and no one helped them because they all thought it was black magic. They'd reached out to all the scholars and all the scholars had given ta'weezes. Actually, she had 2 ta'weezes around her neck. That was the funny part about it. She had 2 ta'weezes around her neck. She had this big ring apparently around her finger, which again another scholar had given. And that's what they'd done. But never once did anyone reach out to NHS. She had no medical records on the NHS regarding mental health.
What kind of things can we, just as normal people, do to raise awareness for this, especially in our community? Like we were saying, it's just a stigma. It gets swept under the rug.
So we need to educate. Like I said, I think it needs to start from our mosque. The reason I say mosque is it's our biggest catchment area. Alhamdulillah, as a Muslim community, most people, if not throughout the week, most probably at least on Jummah, will come to a mosque. We need to, at least in our mosque, explain to people mental health is an illness. It's actually an illness. And if you feel someone you know is going through this illness, what are the signs? Give them the basic signs of what mental health are. What is anxiety? What is stress? What is depression? And these people that are sort of turning away from the world, not coming out of the houses, or when they do come out, they don't talk to anyone, shy away from talking to anyone, and then we pretend they're shy and that's why they're not talking. All of these things, they're signs. We need to get everyone to understand basic signs of mental health. And when they see these signs, we're not saying they become a doctor, they become the curator. We're saying reach out to people who specialize in these areas. Like I said, it has to start from what I would call home, which is masjids, and then our community centers. And we need to educate people because that's where our catchment area is. And everyone needs to take a responsibility that we all own this problem. We all own this problem, and every one of us is responsible to help someone who's going through these issues.
And then, you got the people on the other side of the phone, your volunteers. What support do you provide them? Because obviously it's not easy, even for the burials, it's not easy, but what support do you provide them?
Absolutely brilliant question, because that's the one people we forget about, the people who are actually helping these people go through these things. Ghusl is a perfect example. Like I mentioned, that suicide case, the sisters that gave the ghusl, how did we talk to them afterwards? How did we make sure they're okay? How did we make sure they're not going to go through the same issues? So initially what happens is, even after a ghusl, someone will reach out to all of these people individually and make sure they're okay, because sometimes it's harder to talk about things as a group. Once we've spoken to them individually, then we'll message on a WhatsApp group, which is a group and make sure that everyone's okay. Then we'll message on the group to make sure everyone's okay, congratulate them on the great work they've done, remind them that they're chosen by Allah for this work, and Allah only gives you this work because Allah knows you're strong enough to do it. However, it doesn't mean that just because you're strong enough that you can't talk about it. Remind them about the Prophet as well, who went through the year of grieving when he had lost loved ones that he'd lost, and remind them how important it is that we're all here for each other. So the basic things that we teach others, like if you need to talk, we're here for you. Also, ask them questions which you think may help, because you're not the answer. We're not the answer of getting them through these things, but inshallah, what we're hoping is by talking to them and being there for them and knowing that they'll be able to share this. How many of us are not able to talk to our own family but are able to talk to our friends? How many are able to not talk to our friends or our family but able to talk to just an anonymous person we see? So this is what happens in Support Humanity. We've become that anonymous person for every one of the volunteers. We've become their family, their friend, and that anonymous person. So sometimes they'll tell us things which their own family don't know. We know so many things about even their own home lives, the issues they got at home and everything, because they trust us um, to talk to us about it, to seek advice from us. And we're not saying we're the answer, but the reason they talk to us and seek advice from us is because hopefully they understand that the advice we're going to give them is going to be the right advice and the correct information. And also the information we're going to give them is not just from ourselves. We normally tend to ask also other people. So for example, if it's Islamic advice, we go to Sheikh Yunus, Maulana Salim Nawab, Mufti Menk, various other people that we trust within the charity. If it's mental health issues, then we'll speak to psychologists and various other people. So we also seek help from specialist people as well. But more importantly, we're there for one another. And that's what's important. Supporting Humanity is a family. And if you speak to most of the volunteers, they'll tell you this. We pride ourselves in being a family and being able to, being there for one another. And honestly, we have our ups and downs. If you think we never argue or never debate about things, you're completely incorrect. But the whole beauty of it is after that debate and after everything, alhamdulillah, we're able to leave that room asking for forgiveness and making sure that we say sorry and thank you to everyone.
Is that why you hold a volunteers event as well? Because normal charities, you have fundraising events, but your charity, yearly, you have a volunteer event where all the volunteers get together, you give out awards, you praise them in front of their family.
Yeah, so Support Humanity is a fully volunteer-run charity. We've got over 500 volunteers. We do 2 events a year for our volunteers. The first one is done mid-year. It's just a basic barbecue during the summer, and really important we do that. The reason we do the summer one is because it will be like a barbecue, an outdoor environment, just where they can sort of offload, also mentally feel okay, mentally feel valued. Also, they all get to know each other again, more friends, and more importantly, they feel valued. They realize that we know that without them, we can't do this work. So we like to praise them and thank them. And the beauty of this is that they also know that that food, the money for that has not come out of the charity. So the trustees pay for the food. So that just shows how much the trustees value them. And then we do the end of year, which is when we give out events, and we insist upon everyone trying to bring at least a +1, at least one family member. And at that event, if you come, actually, we initially start by not thanking our volunteers, but thanking their partners. Because if their partners or their family didn't allow them to do this work, and if they made it a hindrance, they wouldn't be able to dedicate this time. So we thank by the non-volunteers, the people who are not part of charity, to say, actually, even you not being a volunteer, you are a volunteer because you've allowed our volunteers to come and give their time. And yes, and then we do this event and we thank them. Like I said, but that event is probably not even 1% of a thank you compared to what they do for the charity. The work they do, the dedication, the time, the effort, the empathy, the love that they show to the charity is unspeakable. You can't describe in words what they do and what they do for the charity.
What's your biggest achievement with supporting humanity?
So we've got numerous ones. The one which to the world will look quite big is the CAVS Award, which is the King's Award for Voluntary Service. Normally, any charity that runs for about 10 years will get this award, but even that, they have to prove certain things. We got a CAVS Award within 5 years of doing our work, and this the reason why it's such a big success is because it's recognized outside the Muslim community, and we got it within 5 years for the work that we've been doing, the recognition we've got. And it's an equivalent to an MBE. It's the highest award a voluntary charity can get. So it's one of the highest awards. So literally every single volunteer in our charity is equivalent to an MBE at this present moment while they're still a volunteer. So in worldly things, it's probably the CAVS Award, but we don't really look at things that we're doing for worldly things. So yes, the CAVS Award helps us make inroads when we're being invited to meetings, networking, and various different things. So we get recognized as a charity in a different way now, and people will respect us and give us the time when we need meetings, etc. So that's why the CAVS Award is really, really important. However, when it comes to realistically the biggest achievement as a charity is the work that we're doing. Every workshop that we do, every volunteer that's joined us, there's so many good things that happen in this charity. Honestly, if you were to say to me 5 years ago, someone would have said we're going to do even 10% of what we've achieved so far, I would have grabbed their hand and said, yes, please, yes, please. Alhamdulillah, every day we're making more and more difference. Last year, for example, we done a Ramadan campaign. It's the only campaign we do every year where we raise money for something overseas, and it has to be somewhere in its major needs. So last year we raised money for Palestine and Sudan, and in one day we raised £106,000. £106,000. And again, that whole event was built around people because we reached out to all the businesses to donate at least one dish. And it was all big name restaurants like Saffron, Sahara Grill, Alvis, you name them, and with Manjaros, anyone and everyone we could think of, we reached out to. And alhamdulillah, they all gave back to the charity and they trusted us and they donated dishes. And then we done auction sales. Man United donated a football shirt to us, a fully signed shirt. Liverpool donated a Mo Salah shirt. These sort of auction items also sold money. And then people just literally came on the day and probably would just buy one tub of rice. And where would say £7, they'd give us £700 or £70, and they said, this rice is worth £700 to me because the person who's going to be benefiting from this money is worth so much more money than this rice. And that's what I'm saying, that people trusted us to make sure that this money was going to go in the right hands. And that's the difference, that they only give you the money because they trust that when their money is going to go in the right place. And that says a lot to me, that they've trusted me and my charity.
But they also see the work that you're doing. And even though a lot of the work is in Newman Redbridge, they see the benefit it's had on the volunteers, on the recipients, on everyone. Because my grandma now goes to the over 60s and she comes back, she goes, I got homework. She'll do a bit of that with my 8-year-old cousin who teaches her maths. But we see that, and I think everyone sees that. But if you were to look forward in 100 years' time, where would you want supporting humanity to be?
Absolutely lovely question, brilliant question. This morning, just before I come here, some ladies reached out to me from Northwest London, Willesden, and she said she wants supporting humanity to come and work there. She's been doing some work in art therapy, and she's looked at our over 60s work that we're doing, and she wants us to expand in Northwest London. Our KPI is that in the next 2 years, we want to at least have 8 other places where we do outside the 7 Nell boroughs. So we want to be working in Northwest London, South London, and maybe even further up north. And we want what we're doing to spread like the wind, so that everyone's doing it. And doesn't have to be under Supporting Humanity's name. We don't mind if they say we need help, come and set us up. We'll set them up, because the beneficiaries should be the end users, not the people that are delivering the workshops. What we're hoping is that everyone will do exactly what we're doing, and if they need our help, we'll do it. But Supporting Humanity, we hope to expand nationally and get the over 60s clubs, the workshops, the trips, even the trips, like, it doesn't have to be profit making. I think a mosque recently started it, and I'm not criticizing the mosque. And someone sent me a poster. They're charging 3 times the amount of money we're charging. And when we went back to the mosque said, because that's what it's costing. So I said, but you raise money in the mosque every day, every Friday you're raising money. You've got loads of money in the bank balance and everything. Why can't you give something back to these people? And the mosque went, it's because in the future we're going to buy another building. What I'm trying to say is that you're talking about the future, but this is your future. Why these elderly? They're not going to be here tomorrow. They're the ones who put money in your box. And if we're not going to look after them, who's going to look after them? And that's what I'm trying to say about our masjids as well. No disrespect, I'm not criticizing any masjids, but what we forget is Islam's not just about people coming to pray 5 times a day. Islam's spread in a different way. If the Prophet had just said, yeah, I pray 5 times and that's Islam, then Islam wouldn't have spread like it did around the world. So what we've got to remember is, how is love spread? What did Islam teach us? And the moral of whole of Supporting Humanity, even though we don't claim to be a Muslim charity, our ground status and everything is around Islam and what Islam teaches us. And you spread love through various different ways. You do dawah through a different way. So our dawah is not give them a Quran, do this and do that. Every time we do work, I'm sure your mum will tell you this, everyone, other than the ghusl workshops and the funeral, which is clearly Muslim side, when we do the other works, people come up to us and always say this one question. We know this, especially on the trips where we have a lot of black women, Chinese women, and everyone come, why do you do this? Why do you show so much love? Why do you do this? And it's such a beautiful answer that most of my volunteers will always give. This is what my religion teaches me.
That's the best
And that's
answer.
what the dawah is. You don't need to have a big beard, a Quran in your hand. Realistically, it's your actions that is what Allah will look at, the actions that you have done. And that is what we're going to be judged on the Day of Judgment. It's not how much money or how long my beard was. Allah's going to look at your actions. And that's what we're hoping Support Humanity will do. Through our actions, people will understand our religion, and they'll understand why our religion has taught us what. And that's what we're trying to do, and spread the word across the whole country with all the masjids and everyone that we work with.
Idris, we'll leave it there. I just want to say a big thank you for the work you're doing for our community. You're taking on all of our responsibility, and we hope to see Supporting Humanity grow more and more in the future.
I thank you and your family and everyone else as well. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.